All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the augmentations for FTL tier list. This is a list I completely did not even think about making. I did the weapons, the drones, the ships, the races, and I don't know, I just forgot about the augments, but it's a really great idea. A bunch of people were suggesting it, so we're going to do it. I made this tier list myself again. Follow me on Twitter if you want. But essentially, I had to make this myself, so I decided to just in each of the tiers kind of describe what I think they are and what I think kind of the criteria for each of them is going to be. And yeah, we're just going to get started here. S tier, always buy. If you have the money and can afford it, always buy them. They're going to either win you the run or help you win the run in a major way. Best augments in the game. A tier are really good. If you find them, you might as well use them. That they help you overall. Not necessarily to buy. You might not want to buy them. You could probably spend your money elsewhere. But if you find them, you may as well keep them because they're definitely going to help you. B tier is they're good in certain situations, as it says. Maybe if you don't have boarding, this augment is useless, or if you don't have a certain setup, they're not really going to help you. But what they do, so they're okay, right? It's very situational. And then niche for C tier, they're niche, but not completely useless. They have a positive. They're just not really going to move the needle for you on a run. They're not going to help you out too much, but they're not necessarily bad. And then D, although none of these augments are like actually hurt you, there are a few that are outright bad / hurts your run, or even just literally functionally completely useless. For example, spoilers, I put the damage stay spot on here because it's technically an augment, but that's the last one down there, so we'll get to it. So these are in pretty much random order, but let's just get started here. Defense Scrambler. Now, Defense Scrambler prevents enemy defense drones from targeting anything. This is not that great. It lets missile weapons do more damage, right? Because they can't get shot down. But there's not that big of a subset of ships that really have defense drones, and those that do, you're also, most of the time, you're not using missiles as your only source of damage. So if you come up against a ship that has defense drone and you can't get through because you only have missile weapons, you're destined to fail anyways. I don't think this augment really helps you that much. Against the flagship, maybe, but I guess I should add on to this is they're niche and not completely useless, but the scrap you would get from selling augments is more advantageous to you generally. So I'm gonna start out Defense Scrambler. It's really not that helpful. It doesn't stop enemy attack drones. It just stops their defense ones from doing anything, which, again, it's not useless. It does work, but it's just, it doesn't really help you that much. Shield Charge Booster, I'm actually going to be honest, I'm going to put it in the A tier because it fits what I kind of described there, where I would never buy this necessarily, but it improves the rate at which your shield recharges by a minuscule amount, but it matters in a game like FTL. So if you find this and you have plenty of augment space, you don't really need the money, I think this is a really good one to just keep. It's just a net positive. It makes you slightly more defensive. I don't know the exact numbers on it, but overall, it's helpful. It's not going to win you the run, but it'll help probably stop a couple damage here and there, and that can be a big thing for you. You never know. Reverse Ion Field also, honestly, is kind of an A tier weapon. Again, augment. I wouldn't necessarily buy it unless, I think I actually did buy it in my most recent run, but that's beside the point. It negates 50% of ion damage, or it has a 50% chance to negate ion damage, which is pretty helpful, to be honest. A lot of ships have ion weapons, and ions are great at taking down shields, so if you have a 50% chance to just ignore that's great, It's not going to win you the run again, but it's always a positive. It always helps. It did definitely help me win this last run I just had on my channel. So I would never sleep on it, and I think it's pretty decent because ions can really hurt you a lot, especially if they have some beams or burst laser Mark IIs or flaks. Ions can mess you up. So having this is pretty helpful, definitely. Again, automated reloader also going in the A tier. This is very close to S tier. It's kind of like the shield charge booster where your weapons just reload and fire slightly faster. And that can make a big difference. It just helps you, depending on the situation, it lets you, say an enemy has the same burst laser as you, with a little bit of piloting skill, or not pilot, a little bit of guns, like weapons man skill, and this augment, you can fire first and maybe take their weapon down before they can even fire. So it works pretty well and lets you become a little bit more offensively pressuring to the enemy. So I actually respect the automated reloader quite a bit, and I think it does good work for sure. Okay, FTL recharge booster increases the speed at which your FTL drive charges, which is good, but it doesn't. I think I'm gonna put this in B tier. It's better than defense scrambler for sure. Its big thing though is you don't run from that many battles, so you don't need to charge your FTL faster that much. Like 95% of battles I go into, because you know when you finish a battle, you win. Your FTL just charges immediately, so it doesn't really do anything for you. Yeah, if you're in a lot of trouble and you're gonna die, charging a little bit faster is pretty good. But it really, other than that, it doesn't do a lot. I mean, that makes me kind of want to put it in C. But I mean, this one at least, like 24/7, has an effect that you can noticeably see and noticeably feel. You know, you charge faster. This one is just, if they have a defense drone, it stops that. So I'm going to keep it in B, I think. It's not that great, but it does have a use, and it's okay. It does what it does well. Well, who's freaking surprised about this? This may be the best augment in the game. I will say the weapon pre-igniter is insanely expensive, but if you buy this, or if you can afford it, it's like almost always a guaranteed buy. It's so dummy good. Having all of your weapons charged immediately is broken. This is the most broken augment in the game. 120 scrap's a lot to pay, like I said, but if you find this and you've been saving up scrap and you buy it, you will steamroll. Especially if you got something like, you know, glaive beam, or not Vulcan really, but like burst laser Mark III. Those weapons become really, really good with this because you can immediately fire them off. You get glaive beam and a burst laser Mark II, you've won the game. That's so broken. So this is an amazing augment for sure. Okay, fire suppression. Pretty good, actually. I can't put it in S tier because it's not always buy if you're able to. It's another A tier for sure. It's really, really good because, I mean, the thing I'd say, we'll get to the Slug repair gel. That's kind of similar. I think the Slug repair gel is actually better, but the point is this automatically puts out fires throughout your ship, which is really good. However, a lot of times the fire, I don't know, it only helps you sometimes because a fire being lit can be random, especially if it's like from a sun event or something. And if it's in like an airlock or a room that nobody's in, you don't need this. You just open the doors and it vents itself. It doesn't cause any problems. Now, if it's in a room with crew and they're trying to fix something, this will help a lot, definitely. But so it's still really good. I wouldn't buy it really again because it's something you can't count on. You know, automated reloader, shield charge booster, every battle you're charging your shields, you're firing your weapons, right? Fire suppression, you could go 20 battles, not have a single fire started, and it does nothing for you in that case. Obviously, it depends, right? But I think because of that, you kind of can't entirely rely on it. But it's still really good, definitely. The effect it does is super good and super helpful. So it's an A tier as well. Okay, life form scanner here. I don't really know about this one. It's pretty much just like having a slug crew, which you could either buy a slug crew or you could just upgrade your like sensors. I mean, granted, it works when sensors don't, but like, how often are your sensors going down? And if they do go down, do you really care? Sensors might be the most... They're good and they have purpose, but sensors may be the most irrelevant system in the game. Realistically, you don't need them. So this is... It's got to be C tier. It just isn't that good. It doesn't really help you that much. You could buy a slug who does better because he's not an augment. He doesn't take him an augment slot. He costs about the same, and he's a crew member that can just move around and actually help with your ship. So this is pretty bad. It obviously is not useless, right? It does work, but it really just doesn't help you on your runs ever, and you should never really buy it. Definitely sell it if you ever get it. So backup DNA bank is interesting. If you don't have a clone bay, it is literally just useless. However, obviously, if you have a clone bay, it can be a bit more useful. So I think for that, it's got to be in B tier. You know, if you have the clone bay and your crew is dying and you don't have the power to keep it powered, it can save your ass, right? So you don't lose the run. But that doesn't really make it that good. And the fact that it's just 100% useless without a clone bay makes it just really pretty irrelevant. Probably sell, but I'll bump it up to B here just because with a clone bay it can be okay. Good in certain situations. Engi Medbot Dispersal. So for the augments like this that you can't really buy in a store like this, or let's see what else we got. Well, like Zoltan Shield or Crystal Vengeance, stuff like that. It won't really fit, obviously, because you can't buy them, but we'll just pretend it's irrelevant. So Engi Medbot Dispersal, pretty good, actually. The biggest problem with it is it only works when you're... Well, so what it does is it heals all of your crew all over your ship if your medbay is powered on at half the speed. So, or maybe it's 25%, at a fraction of the speed, let's just say. So it's good in a couple situations. It's good if you're a lazy ass like me and you're like, I don't want to move everyone to the medbay, I'll just let them heal while I fight my next fight. But if you're a good player, unlike me, you would actually see a lot of advantage of it while you're in a battle and you can't move your pilot out to heal. You know, they're low, they're fixing, right? You need them in the pilot room. This will just heal them slowly. So it is good. The biggest downside is it needs to be powered, or your medbay needs to be powered. And if you watch my gameplay, or really just any gameplay, you should really never have your medbay on unless you need to heal someone. It's pretty much a waste of power all the time. So that does make it a little bit less useful, because I would way rather have one extra power in engines than one extra power powering my medbay when my team is at full health. Obviously, you could do some power pivoting. You could depower and repower your medbay somewhere, but I think I'm going to put it in B just because healing your crew like that is not really that helpful. Like, it is. It's good, definitely, but it's nothing crazy to write home about. And it's good in certain situations, but if you're fully healed or whatever, you don't need it. Plus, I mean, if you have a clone bay, it's also completely useless. So I do think it's better than the backup DNA bank. I'm not really going to do like specific rankings, but it's close to A, but I don't think it really moves your run enough, so I'm going to leave it in B. Okay, FTL Jammer is pretty... Okay, so FTL Jammer gives you an extra jump or two every sector by jamming... Or wait, no, that is not. That's a different one. That is, that's the fleet one. FTL Jammer here, it jams enemy... enemy FTL, so they can't jump as fast. Sorry, I got that mixed up. FTL Jammer is pretty decent. It's, again, kind of situational, because if the enemy ship isn't running, it doesn't do anything. Whereas something like Prigniter, always doing good for you. Automated Reloader, always doing good for you. This is only sometimes. It can save you quite a bit, you know, if you need, like, the fuel or from a ship that's trying to run, or you just need scrap or whatever. It can be super helpful. But the other thing is it doesn't even stop them from jumping. It just delays it. So if you're really doing terribly, it might not even save you. Having said that, I don't think it's that good. It's slightly useful, but I think you're more often than not going to probably want to sell this. So I think I'm going to put it in C. It's not completely useless. You know, I see what it does, but I just don't think it helps you that much. And it's... I very rarely have ships get away from me. Again, if you're newer, maybe you're not quite as good at targeting stuff. But I mean, if you see a ship's about to run and they still have a ton of health, you got to pivot. If they're... Otherwise, most of the time when ships run, they're almost dead, right? Not all the time, but most of the time. And in that case, you can probably just kill them before this even becomes relevant. So I don't think it's that great. Stealth weapons are good. So pretty much when you're stealthed and you shoot weapons, it lowers your stealth timer faster. But if you have the stealth weapons augment, it doesn't do that, or it at least negates some of that. So you can pretty much fire your weapons in stealth. However, you can still kind of do that. If you have level 2 or level 3, yeah, it does drop a chunk of your stealth timer, but it doesn't like immediately unstealth you. You're still stealth. So most of the time, at least with stealth and cloaking, is I cloak to avoid a volley from the enemy, especially like the flagship's triple missiles or their drone burst or their Zoltan shield burst in the final phase. So I'm not really in cloaked form for an extended period of time. It's to quickly dodge a bunch and then let it recharge. So stealth weapons don't really help that much because I'm not trying to stay cloaked for a long period of time. So I think I'm going to put them in B because they are good and they do help you noticeably if you have cloaking. Obviously, if you don't have cloaking, they're useless. And that's kind of one of the reasons, again, you can't put that too high because things like these are always going to be helpful on any ship build. whereas these are a little bit more niche. But I do think it's good. I just think it doesn't help you that much for what you're actually going to be using cloaking for most of the time. Okay, advanced FTL navigation is not that good, really. It lets you jump to any previously visited beacon. The only possible time this is good is if you go down a path in a sector and you get one of those like wonky ones where it doesn't connect to the exit and you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna die, I need to go way back. But like, you should always be checking that when you get to a sector anyways. So there's really no, and like, you don't ever get anything from going back to a beacon that you've already visited unless it's a store. And even then, you never really want to go to any beacon twice ever in FTL, because it minimizes the scrap you get, the rewards, the whatever you get. There's no reason to ever go back unless you're in that very specific situation I just described. So therefore, I think it's pretty bad. You're never going to want to use it. The scrap you get from it is far more valuable. Explosive replicator is pretty good if you have missiles. However, let me run this by you. Missiles, let's look at the Rock A. That is a ship that uses exclusively missiles, at least early on. And it is bad because of that. So using a ship with only missiles is like not ever a run you want to do seriously to win. If you're doing a challenge run or just messing around, then sure. Using only missiles is never the move, okay? Now, if you're using a run with like one missile launcher where you occasionally fire one, that's good. And this is where Explosive Replicator shines. However, the final thing to consider is if you're doing that type of run where you have a missile to like add on to your run, or by the flagship you're going to use it to get some free damage through the shields. Anyone who's played FTL knows you have like 30, 40 missiles by the end, which is way more than you could ever possibly need. So getting the chance to not use a missile is not really that relevant in most situations. It is a net positive, obviously. If you're using missile weapons, it's good, but it doesn't really help you that much as you think it might. You know, if you rock a first jump, get this, obviously you love it, right? But that's such a like random scenario that saving missiles here and there, you shouldn't ever have to. If you ever have to rely on missiles like so much to win, you're probably not going to be able to win that run, because that's just it's too much of a crutch for your run. Using missiles as an accentuation to a run is really good in a lot of situations, and in that case, you don't even really need this. So I think it's good again, but I think it's actually less good than one might think. I guess I can put it in B tier, because sometimes if you get it early on and you are getting bad luck with weapon drops and you really are only using missiles, it can help in a pinch, but I don't think it's really that good, despite seeming amazing. Distraction buoys is what I was thinking of earlier. This is the one that gives you an extra jump for each sector. Now, one jump is not really that much. It is good, but it's not that much. Generally, when you're jumping through beacons in FTL, you want to maximize every possible jump you can get to. So getting one extra is good, but it's also not necessarily going to move the needle that much. If you're rushing to the exit, which you shouldn't be doing, by the way, if you're trying to win, this is not going to help you, obviously. You know, being scared of the Rebel fleet is not what you want. So I think this is okay. It does, you know, it's a free jump. I would never, like, it's not, it can't go in A tier because it's not, it just doesn't do that much for you. It helps, definitely, but one jump is just not that helpful, I feel like. I don't know. I'm going to put it in B tier. I respect it, and I think it does do okay. It's just not really that useful. Okay. Hacking stun. So this is an interesting one. It doesn't hurt your run, obviously, but it's one of the most useless augments in the game, because what it does is when you hack a room, it stuns whoever is in there. Okay? However, when you hack a room, it also locks the doors, puts blast doors up, so nobody can get in or out that easily anyways. So obviously hacking them while that doesn't make any sense. When you're hacking a system like shields, the guy in the shields room just stands there because he can't do anything while you're hacking it. This does almost nothing. In fact, so I think I got to put it in D tier. It seems like it'd be useful. Like, oh yeah, they can't fix the hacking while it's being hacked, the room that's, you know. But no, like, they can't fix it while you're actively hacking it. And while you're not actively hacking it, that's the whole point of hacking. That you don't break the system, you just hack it. So they have nothing to fix. So it really does nothing for you. It does, okay, it doesn't hurt your run. I should probably change this, but it doesn't help you at all. It's completely useless pretty much. So this is an immediate sell. Long range scanners, welcome to S tier. I've said it many, many times in all of my videos. This is I honestly think this is better than pre-igniter because it's 30 scrap, which is dirt cheap, and it helps you like on a meta level on the run. This helps you in the moment shooting things down, which is, again, it's still S tier. It's amazing. The long range scanners, especially if you get it early, just sets you up for absolute success. Being able to see where enemy ships are and know to jump to them to get the scrap rewards and avoid like empty beacons that'll just be a waste of your time and fuel maximizes your scrap gain so much. Plus, it lets you know when there's hazards like asteroid fields and suns. Or the one I like most about it is in nebulas, you can see where there's the ion storms or whatever. And those are annoying as shit, so I like avoiding those. So this has so many uses, and it can pay for itself within like 2 jumps because you know exactly where enemy ships are and you can get scrap. It's so good. Lets you plan your routes through sectors so much more. Oh my god, I love this augment. Another S tier, scrap recovery arm. This pays for itself very quickly as well. Plus, it's stackable. On my most recent run on the channel here with the Fed B, I got 2 of these. I've never seen so much money in my life. It was absurd. This thing just, oh my god, it gives you so much money. Over time, obviously. But it pays for itself, which is why you should pretty much always be buying it. Scrap recovery arm is amazing. It's one of my favorites in the game as well. So drone recovery arm is really good if you're doing a pretty heavy drone build. If not, obviously it's useless. And that makes me kind of think I have to put it in B tier. Pretty much if you use a drone and it doesn't blow up, you get the drone part back. But here's the thing about it. Most of the time, unlike missiles, drone parts are not as limiting. One, drones aren't necessary to win with most ships and most builds. They're kind of like you add them on to get some damage once you take the enemy shields down, right? But they're not necessary 100% to win any given run, I would say, on average. So if you don't get the drone part back because you don't have this augment, it's not that big a deal. You kind of pile up drone parts pretty quickly, and chances are you won't be using a drone part every battle, right? Depending on the ship you're fighting, whereas missiles you kind of have to, depending on your build. So I think getting the drones back, while good, isn't super duper good, and combined with the fact that it's literally 100% useless if you don't have a drone system, makes it only a B tier to me. All right, battery charger here. So it halves the time that backup battery is usable, or like the lock time, which is useful. Again, it's kind of like if you don't have a backup battery, which I rarely ever do. I think the only time I do is when I play Zoltan C, which starts with one. I don't buy it. It's just, it can be good. The temporary power you get from a backup battery is helpful, but it's temporary, right? So it's a little bit situational. I don't know. I just feel like even with a backup battery, the temporary nature of it means that you use it in a burst, you do what you got to do, and then you are like over it. So having a little bit longer or less cooldown time, while useful, is like, it's just not that useful, I think. So I think most of the time, especially because it's like kind of expensive, 40 scrap, like I don't think it's really that good. I think I'm going to put it in C, because a backup battery in and of itself is kind of a rare system that you don't really go for that much. And if you do, it helps you, but it doesn't help you that much. All right, this is kind of the augment that I was alluding to with the D tier. This can ruin your run. The repair arm, essentially, after every battle, repairs your hull a couple points, but it takes the scrap rewards that you get, which is really, really, really bad. Now, obviously, fixing your ship for two hull points every jump could be good if you're really dying, but the scrap being taken from you is terrible, which far outweighs the actual benefit of it. You could just use that scrap to fix your ship if you want, Plus, if you're at full HP slash almost full, this is useless for you. You don't need to heal more, so it just does nothing. So this will ruin your run in the sense of like, it just takes your scrap and prevents you from upgrading relevant things like engines, shields, weapons. I really think this is super bad. Always sell it if you can, if you get it. And I mean, when I play the game, I like to stick around like 2/3 HP, just before the green bar turns yellow, because there's a ton of like free repair events and stuff, or even like discounted ones that you find out there. So I don't really want to be repaired to full. So this is a terrible augment. This is really, really bad. Okay, Zoltan Shield Bypass. Zoltan Shield Bypass is good, depending on what you were doing. So it lets it's boarding for sure. And it allows crew and bomb teleportation as well as mind control. So if you have a teleporting build, it can help, especially against the flagship, right? If you rely on that a lot, it can definitely help. And I mean, bomb teleporting through is good as well, but it's a little bit less helpful. I think I'm going to put... We got a big B tier, but unfortunately, so many things are dependent. Like, in order to get pushed into A and S tier, it has to be something that is just always good for your ship. I've said that before in this video, but I'm reiterating it. Zoltan Shield Bypass sometimes is just useless for you, which means I just can't justifiably put it in A tier. These I would never complain because they all do amazing passive effects. This is like an active thing almost that you need that can help you in certain situations, but not all of them. Yeah. So I think I'm okay with that. It is helpful if you got a boarding crew or you rely on bombs, which I wouldn't necessarily say you should rely on bombs. They can help. So I think I'm going to leave it in B tier. It's good in certain situations. Emergency respirators, I think, are kind of along the line of fire suppression. They might go in A tier. They may go in A tier. It pretty much, your crew takes half damage from low oxygen. There's not a lot of situations, like fires you can't control, right? If you get hit by a sun or a fire beam, or just you get the fire started from an enemy missile or something like that, you can't control that, and having fire suppression really helps. However, having low oxygen is a lot more in your control. Now, obviously, if a ship blows up your oxygen system and you're suffocating, that not so much. But like in terms of opening airlocks and you're suffocating, just close the airlocks. Like, there are situations where it's out of your control. But a lot of times you are controlling where the oxygen is sucked out in your ship by venting borders or whatever. So it can be helpful, definitely. I think it's a little worse than fire suppression. Is it an A tier, though? I don't think it is. I just don't... When I play, I can... Fire causes a lot more chaos and is a lot more stressful than low oxygen. Low oxygen, you can do a lot. You can open all the doors. You can just move your crew until the oxygen comes back. Obviously, it depends on the exact situation you're in, but I think this is also a B tier. It helps, and I mean the Lanius ships get it. Start with this, which is good because the Lanius suck the oxygen, so that's obviously a little bit more helpful. I just think it's not quite as like universally applicable, and I think you can do more without this augment to solve oxygen crises than with fires. Like, fires can get out of control and really hurt your systems, and then hurt more and kind of avalanche into other stuff. Whereas I think this is a little bit more, if your oxygen's down, you need to just fix your oxygen, right? Fire is a bit more chaotic. So I think that's why I'm going to leave it in B. Still good, though. B is still, these are decent. Like, these are still good augments. Well, Reconstructed Teleport, if you're doing a teleport build, is insanely good. Okay, it heals your crew to full every time they teleport. This is really good for time saving, at the very least, right? You don't have to heal your crew. But even in battle time saving, like, you beam them back, and you're like, I don't want to have to wait for them to heal in the med bay before I send them back. We're going to take some missile damage. We're going to be hurting, whatever. You can just send them back as soon as your teleport is ready again, which is really good. And so it's really amazing if you have a teleporter. If you don't, again, it doesn't really help you at all. But this goes, if you are doing a fully teleport build, I think this is S tier. But if you don't have a teleport, it's like literally just C tier. It does nothing for you. So I think I got to split the difference. I'm going to put it in B, but it's a high B tier. It's hard to rank, again, because it's so contingent on having teleportation. Without it, you can't really even rank this, to be fair. Rock plating. Okay, so we're getting to these two. These you can't buy. They only come with the rock ship or the stealth ship. I think I have to put both. They pretty much do the exact same thing. The rock plating is slightly better because it gives you some blue events if you get lucky. But they do functionally the same thing. I think I got to put these in A tier because they're really good to start with. You know, you get free damage negated every so often, which is just a net positive. It's a passive thing. Anything that's completely passive that works with any ship. Obviously, again, this only really works with rock ships or if you get lucky from an event. But a passive that just always works, you don't have to worry about it. Plus, I see them as like assets that you can sell. I pretty much always sell the starting augments of most ships other than the Zoltan shield if I need the money, because they're pretty expensive. They're like 40 scrap each or something, which is pretty decent. And you find an early store you can't afford, like a Burst Laser Mark II. You're like, I need that, though. You can sell one of these. Obviously, that's not really ranking the augment. That's a little unfair to even consider that. But I think they're really good. Obviously, you can't buy them. But even if you could, I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to buy them or get them. But if you had them, I'd be happy. And I wouldn't sell them unless I had to. So I think both of these are pretty good. They're not game-changing, but they're helpful. They're passive. Love to see them. Drone Reactor Booster. This is like really kind of a... I don't think I've ever really had this one. It starts on the Engi, and pretty much it just increases the... Oh, yeah, that's why. It's only on that ship. I was like, I don't think I've ever really seen this in a store. That's why. It makes your drones on your ship move faster, which is helpful on the Engi, because the Engi has no crew except the pilot, and you have to use system repair drones and anti-personnel drones. So it's helpful, but like it's kind of just bad. Like, that's the only time you'll literally ever have it, and that ship is also really, really bad, relatively. So this is pretty bad. Like, it's not useless, but it's so niche. And with Engi, you want to get real crew as soon as possible, so you don't have to use those stupid ass drones anymore. And having drones move fast, like, it's just not. It doesn't help you. Again, it's not useless, but it really doesn't help you. Slug Repair Gel is going to go in A as well. It's not quite S tier, especially because you can only get it on Slug ships. But it fixes breaches by itself over time, which is really, really good. Breaches are like one of the most annoying statuses to get on when you get hit. It's incredibly frustrating to deal with because it sucks the oxygen. It prevents you from repairing the actual system. So having this is really, really, really helpful. And it's one of my favorite things about the Slug ships, to be honest. The only reason it's not S tier is because it's just not that good, but it is really good. So it's definitely an A tier. Again, you can't buy it, but if I could buy it, probably wouldn't, but I would never sell it unless I had to. So definitely A tier. Slug Repair Gel I think it's better than Fire Suppression. For what it's worth, I'll put it like that, but yeah. So Mantis Pheromones makes crew move faster, or is it just Mantis? It's just all crew by 25%, which is good, but like, moving faster is not that useful, especially because this is only on Mantis ships, and Mantis are already the fastest race in the game. So it is a net positive, but it doesn't really help that much. Like, other than rocks, the combat, like, you know, fighting person-to-person combat is never like determinant on speed of movement. It's always just like who does more damage, right? So moving crew around faster doesn't really help you that much, to be honest. It can definitely be useful because, you know, it works, but I just don't think it's really that good for a Mantis. Like, the Mantis build is already good enough for boarding. I don't think having 25% speed is that helpful. I guess on rocks it is, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's niche. Like, again, you're only gonna have this on the Mantis ships, so it's not really niche then, because that's fair. I'll put it in B tier because it's not niche, since if you have this, you're on the Mantis ship, and if you're a Mantis ship, you're boarding them 100% anyways. pretty much. So it's going to always be helpful. It's not like you could buy this with like an Engi drone build and be like, damn, this is useless. So I'll put it in B tier for that. It's good in certain situations. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. Crystal Vengeance. I kind of see it like rock plating and titanium system casing. It doesn't do the same thing. Pretty much if you get hit, there's a 10% chance you shoot off like a crystal that hurts the enemy. So, I mean, it's decent. It's like a free missile pretty much. But they can also be dodged. It's good. I think it's got to go in, it's got to go in A tier. Like, it's pretty good. I would sell it because it doesn't help you that much, and it's not targeted damage, so it's kind of random. Plus, like I said, it can be dodged, and it sells for quite a bit of money. So I think I would sell it. I wouldn't sell unless I had to, but I think it's pretty good overall. It's just a nice, again, a passive thing that just helps you out. All right, Zoltan Shield is probably our final S tier item, or I guess it's an item, augment. If you have this, you're gonna win the game. This is so good. Zoltan Shield, starting with it, is one of the reasons they're like one of the best ships in the game. It's so good. It negates 5 damage from any source. Missiles, lasers, beams, whatever. You cannot be hacked. You cannot be mind controlled. You cannot be boarded while it's up. Oh my god, this thing is good. I mean, you guys knew this already, but this thing is broken. Obviously, you can only get on Zoltan ships unless you get the special event in the Zoltan sectors with the Peace Envoy ship. Unfortunately, it's a 50-50 shot. You can get this or you can get the Envoy Zoltan, who's still good, but definitely not as good as the Zoltan Shield Augment. But this is so broken. This is amazing. And the damage stasis pod, I mean, I put this on here for memes. It doesn't do anything. It's used to unlock the crystal ship. I don't even know why I put that on there. It doesn't help you at all. But, you know, sake of completion, I had to have it on there. So, there we go. I think that is my list. Am I going to change anything real quick? The B tier is pretty fat, but I think there are a lot of B tier ones that are, like, good, but not super crazy. Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with this. So, I think that's going to be my list, guys. Let me know what you think. Again, if you see these, especially this, always buy it. Always buy it. And these are pretty much C and D you should always just be selling unless you have the specific situation that like maybe you want one of these, but yeah. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought. And maybe, I don't know, maybe this isn't the last tier list. There's always another one. It always comes out of the woodwork, which is awesome. I love making these. I love doing tier lists. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much. See you guys.